Ever since I can remember, ever since I started studying, I've always started studying as a way to get good grades. It was kind of like renewing my sense of self-worth every time I get a good grade, right? And whenever I did really good, I'd feel really good about myself. But I've really come a long way since then, since I was like a kindergarten kid. And now I'm a university student aiming for medicine. And I've been thinking a lot about like my motivations behind it and about the purpose behind why I learn even in the first place. So I'm going to talk about myself a lot here because I guess when I'm pursuing medicine right now, I'm constantly learning content in high school and like university across so many different subjects. And when you kind of build those habits of studying, you usually have some underlying reason for why you do it. And I've been trying to really think about why I study. But before I go into that, I kind of want to start from the beginning. When I was very young, probably kindergarten, I remember getting my first test scores, and I noticed something early on. Like, if my score was good, I got a good reaction from my parents, and if I got a bad score, I get a really bad one. And so as a kid, I learned something very simple, like if I wanted to make people that I care about happy, I should get good grades. The typical B plus, be homeless. And of course, I wanted to make them happy, like so automatically I would just start really studying harder. As you can guess, I grew up in like an Asian household culture, so that they really push for that academic success, and I really leaned into that fully, and I really studied hard. And I remember just like saying, as a kid, right? And going through exercises that I've printed out by myself, math exercises. I mean, if you ask any other kid around me back then, in my school, they'd think I was kind of crazy and, why are you even doing that? You're torturing yourself. And you know what? It kind of did look like torturing, but, I think why I did it was, the motivation came from outside. It was for validation and it was external. Proving myself, seeking that approval, tying my work to outcomes. And then in high school, this turned into like constant comparing. So if like a friend of mine scored higher than me, I would feel like my whole world shattered. Like I feel really weak. Whenever, like if I left the classroom and the teachers gave back out test scores and my friend would be like, "Oh, what'd you get?" I'd be like, I got this score," and then they'll be like, "I got this score," and if it was higher than mine, I feel really weak, and I'd feel worthless, and like my entire day would be ruined. It was that bad. If I got a bad score, I felt bad. If I got a good score, I felt like amazing, like I was the best, like I was finally worth something. But looking back, I see how extreme those highs and lows were. And honestly, they were very ego-centered, very fragile. It was all about how can I be the best? I am the best when I got a good school. I am the worst when I got a bad school. There's a lot of I am, right? And then I got into university and I started recognizing these patterns. And I think this is common among pre-med students and when there's a lot of anxiety about grades because, to be honest, grades do matter for getting in. So it would only be natural for us to think a lot about them. And in some way, that pressure helps. But sometimes those pressures can get too much and too outcome focused. And sometimes they don't work anymore. And now that I'm 20 and I'm doing my undergraduate degree, I really started asking deeper questions like, why am I learning? And do I enjoy learning itself, or am I doing all this for just grades and outcomes? Did I enjoy learning when I got bad results? Did I enjoy learning when I got good ones? And this is what I noticed. Throughout our university semester, there were like specific events where you will see your grades, right? Whether that's assignments, exams, final results. But there's time in between those events. And in that in-between time, when I was just studying, filling in gaps, planning, figuring out what the different steps, what my goal for the day should be, what are the steps I should take to get to that goal, grappling with the content that I'm learning, I noticed that I actually enjoyed it. When I talk to other people about the material, I ask questions to my teachers, collaborate, speak to my lecturers. When I went through those flashcards and noticed those gaps, I noticed this sense of curiosity. Like it comes from thinking, I don't understand this yet. How can I understand it better? How do I renew and update my knowledge of this concept? How do I connect this to other ideas and see the bigger picture? How do I make sure that I can chunk this? And it kind of felt like a game of trying to master my knowledge. And that initial kind of moment of not understanding something was painful for me, don't get me wrong, right? When I didn't get things, it was painful and it was frustrating. And there was a real sense of conflict in my brain. But once I worked through it, once things start to click, I felt relief. There was a resolution in the conflict that was in my brain, right? And there was a sense of mastery of my knowledge. And that feeling is really rewarding. So when I compare how I learned from kindergarten to high school versus how I learn now at university, the difference is very clear. Before, it was like grades and comparisons and being loud and proving myself. And I remember there's a quote that goes, "Those who are the loudest are often the most insecure in the room." And when I reflect on that, I realize how much of more joy I feel when I focus on upgrading my knowledge instead of chasing grades. I see learning as a stepping stone, and each question and filling the gaps helps refine my understanding, and it's been working. I feel a lot less pressure. I feel a lot less anxiety. And even though I got like some, still anticipate grades in between like assessments and I get worried about it and stuff, the day-to-day process of studying lectures and concepts and discussion feels like really genuinely satisfying. And when I collaborate with others, I feel excited. Of course, when they say something I don't know, there's a brief comparison, but more importantly, I guess, following that, there's satisfaction when they point out a flaw in my understanding. Like, it signals to me what I need to do to grow and do better. And I think that's something really beautiful. And so I think there's some real takeaways for you guys. I think the first thing is separate learning from evaluating, right? Grades are just, evaluations by the education system of us. But when we learn how to separate our learning that happens in between those evaluations, we kind of feel a sense of internal motivation that comes from within. And I think that's where real growth happens, in between those grades that gets released. Second thing is that I think treating confusion as a signal and not a failure is really important. Feeling I don't get this isn't proof that you're bad at something or you're bad at learning. It's proof that you found the edge of your understanding. And when you find that edge of that learning, you can kind of start to grow more, right? And that's when learning happens. Another thing to note is chasing mastery of our knowledge, not reassurance. So looking for external validation might give us a quick relief, like how when I was going through my kindergarten to high school, I would see comparisons, and if I did better, I'd feel a quick relief. But it really did fade fast, like it went away really quick. And so something that sticks out out longer than that is mastering knowledge. because it's kind of earned, it's not given to us. Lastly, I think what I learned from the comparisons to other people in high school and in university is that using other people as kind of mirrors and not measuring sticks is far more productive. When someone knows something you don't, the instinct is to compare. But when we treat the information of someone knowing something we don't, asking ourselves, what do they understand that I don't yet, and what gap did this interaction reveal? Using that person as a mirror to see ourselves, but also acknowledging the fact that they're the same as us, that they are also learning. I think that's really important and really helpful. Anyway, that's just been my thoughts about this, and I hope. I recorded these videos so that I can watch it back, later on and remind myself as well. But I hope that this does somewhat help some of you out there. And yeah, good luck.